Jake stood at the edge of the alien city, holding a bunch of bright red flowers in his hands. He had come a long way from Earth, traveling through space just to meet her. Zarni, his alien girlfriend, had told him stories about her home, her people, and especially her mother. Veltra, she's kind, a little serious. But she, like you, Zarni, had said with a smile. Jake believed her, so he prepared well. He wore clean clothes, polished his boots, and practiced alien greetings all night before the visit. But now, standing in front of the glowing green door of Veltra's home, his hands were sweaty and his heart beat fast. The house was strange. It had no windows, and its walls seemed to shimmer like water. He had never seen anything like it as he raised his hand to press the doorbell. The door opened on its own. A tall alien woman stood there. Her eyes deep purple, her face sharp and still. She looked at Jake for a long moment, not saying a word. Then she smiled. Not kindly, but slowly, as if her mouth was learning how to do it. Finally, alone, she said in a soft, cold voice. And the door closed behind Jake with a loud hiss. Jake turned quickly, surprised. Where is Zarni?" he asked, but Veltra was already walking down the hallway. Her long dress floating behind her, he followed her, feeling like a small child in a giant maze. The walls inside were alive. They moved gently, as if breathing. Lights followed them as they walked, changing colors slowly from green to blue to red. The hallway opened into a large room with no furniture. Just a single table in the middle with 2 chairs. Veltra sat down and pointed to the other chair. Jake sat, placing the flowers on the table. "These are for you," he said. Trying to smile, Veltra looked at them, then back at him. "Humans still bring plants to show peace," she said quietly. "Interesting." Jake laughed nervously. "Yes. It's an old habit." She didn't laugh, not even a little. "Where is Zarni?" he asked again, this time a bit louder. Veltra tilted her head. "She had to leave for a short mission," she said. "But I am happy you are here." Jake nodded. Trying to hide his worry, something didn't feel right. He looked around the room again, trying to spot pictures or signs of life. But there was nothing, just smooth walls and silence. Then something caught his eye, a hallway to the left, barely lit. A small red light blinked deep in the shadows. Veltra stood up suddenly. "Let me show you your room," she said. "You'll be staying here tonight. I thought Zarni would be here to show me around," Jake said. Standing slowly, Veltra looked into his eyes. "Don't worry, she'll come back," she said. Then added, "But for now, it's just us." Her voice made Jake shiver. There was something strange in her tone, something cold and almost hungry. She led him down a narrow hallway to a small room. The door opened with a soft hiss. The walls glowed light blue, and there was a round bed in the middle. Jake stepped in, looking around. It was clean. Too clean and empty. No windows, no books, no screens, just silence. "I'll leave you to rest," Veltra said behind him. Then added, "The door locks from the outside." For safety, before Jake could ask what that meant. The door closed with a click. He turned quickly, trying the handle. It wouldn't move. Now he was really alone. Jake sat on the bed, his mind racing. He took out his small communicator and tried calling Zarni. But there was no signal, just static. He stood and walked around the room, tapping the walls, hoping to find something. Then he noticed a crack near the bed. A small opening in the wall. He bent down and reached inside. His fingers touched something soft. He pulled it out. It was a photograph. His heart stopped. It was a photo of Zarni, smiling, standing with Veltra, but someone had scratched a red X across Zarni's face. Jake dropped the photo, his hands shaking. He backed away from the wall, staring at the door. What was going on in this house? Where was Zarni? And why did Veltra say, "Finally"? Alone? The lights in the room dimmed slowly, and a soft hum began in the walls. Almost like a heartbeat, Jake sat back on the bed. Afraid to sleep, afraid to stay awake. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and he was trapped. He whispered to himself, "Zarni, where are you?" Jake did not sleep that night. He sat on the edge of the round bed, staring at the strange blue walls. The hum inside the house was louder now, like a slow drumbeat. Sometimes he thought he could hear a whisper hidden under the sound. His name said over and over again when the door finally slid open on its own. He jumped to his feet. Veltra stood there, tall and calm. "Breakfast," she said, her eyes glinting purple. Jake followed her out of the room, keeping a little distance. The hallway had changed. It was longer than before. The walls now a soft green, glowing slightly as they breathed. The floor felt warm under his boots, almost like skin. They reached a room that looked like a kitchen, but nothing inside was familiar. There were silver tubes hanging from the ceiling, steam rising from glowing bowls. Veltra poured a thick blue liquid into a cup and handed it to Jake. "Drink," she said. He sniffed it. It smelled metallic, like blood mixed with sugar. "What is it?" he asked, trying to sound polite. "Food," she said softly. "Good for humans." He pretended to sip, but set it down on the table, his eyes moving around the kitchen. Still no sign of Zarni, no personal objects. No family photos, nothing. Only walls and machines. "Where is Zarni now?" he asked again. "She didn't tell me she had a mission." Veltra smiled strangely. "She's safe. Don't worry," she said. Then added, "You're safe too." For now, her words felt heavy. Jake forced a smile. "I'd like to see her when she returns." "You will," Veltra said, turning away in time as she moved to another part of the kitchen. Jake noticed a small door half hidden behind a curtain of glowing threads. A red light blinked above it like a heartbeat. He made a mental note. After breakfast, Veltra gave him a tour of the house, but the tour felt more like a trap. The rooms changed shape when he turned his head. Stairs appeared and disappeared. Sometimes a hallway would stretch until it felt endless. "This house is alive," Veltra said suddenly. Her hand brushing the wall. "It listens. It remembers. It protects." Jake nodded slowly. "Protects from what?" "From outsiders," she said, looking at him with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Every time he asked about Zarni, Veltra's answers became shorter, colder. And every time the house seemed to close in tighter around him. Finally, she left him in a large lounge with a single chair and no windows. "Wait here," she said. "I'll return soon." The door sealed behind her. Jake stood alone, his heart racing. He tried the door, but it would not move. He searched the room, running his hands along the smooth walls. Then he found a small panel near the floor. He pressed it, and it opened slightly. Inside, he saw dust, wires, and something else, a human shoe, small and old, not his. His stomach tightened. He pulled it out. The leather cracked and stained. Who had left it here? Suddenly, the communicator in his pocket buzzed. A faint light blinking. He grabbed it, shielding it from the room as if the walls were watching. The screen flickered, and a broken voice came through. "Jake. Ken, here. Me." It was Zarni, weak and distant. "Zarni." He whispered quickly, "Where are you? What's happening?" The voice cracked with static. "Not safe, Mother. Dangerous. Run." Then it went dead. The light vanished. Jake sat back against the wall, his head spinning. Veltra had lied. Zarni was here, somewhere, and she was in trouble. He stuffed the communicator back into his pocket and forced himself to breathe. He had to find a way out. He had to find her. The hum in the walls grew louder, almost angry, as if the house had heard the call. Lights above him shifted from blue to deep red. He stood, scanning the room, his eyes locking on the small door with the red light he had seen earlier. Maybe it led somewhere Veltra didn't want him to go. He crossed the room quickly and pressed his palm to the panel beside it. The door hissed but didn't open. He tried again, harder. Finally, the panel blinked green for a second and the door slid open a few inches. Cold air rushed out, smelling of metal and salt. He slipped inside, holding his breath. The door closed behind him, sealing him in darkness. This new hallway was narrow and cold. Lights flickered on the floor, and strange symbols glowed on the walls. He walked slowly, trying not to make a sound. Somewhere ahead, he could hear water dripping. And beneath that sound, another whisper, soft and broken. Like someone crying, he followed it, his heart pounding. The floor under his boots pulsing gently. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed ahead and a voice filled the hallway. Veltra's voice, but colder, echoing from everywhere. "Jake, why are you wandering?" He froze, pressing himself against the wall. But the voice kept moving like a snake. "This house is not for you." He turned and ran. The hallway stretching, twisting, lights flickering red. He found a small door at the end and pushed it open. Falling inside, the room was dark, filled with strange machines glowing faint blue. Wires hanging from the ceiling, glass containers lined up against the walls. Inside one of them floated something that looked like a human arm. Pale and still, Jake stepped back, his heart in his throat. He was not in a home anymore. He was in a lab. Behind him, the door hissed shut. Veltra's voice whispered softly, "Curious little human." Jake spun around, but no one was there, just the walls. Breathing slowly, watching him, he clenched his fists. "Zarni, I'm coming for you," he whispered to himself. The lights dimmed, the hum deepened, and the machines began to wake up. Jake stayed very still in the cold room, his back pressed against a machine that hummed softly. The air smelled sharp, like metal and salt. The walls were covered with thin, glowing lines that pulsed like veins. Machines stood in rows. Glass containers full of strange liquids and pale shapes floated inside them. He swallowed hard, his heart beating fast. He had never felt so small, so far from home. Somewhere in the dark room, a faint sound rose. Not from a machine, but from the walls themselves. A whisper, soft at first, then clearer. "Jake." His name, said slowly like a sigh. He turned sharply, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Zarni." He whispered back, his voice shaking. The whisper came again, a little louder. "Jake. This way?" He moved carefully between the machines, following the sound, his boots making soft thuds on the pulsing floor. The further he went, the colder it got. The air felt wet. Tiny drops of water clung to his hands as he brushed against the walls. He reached the back of the room where a panel glowed faint red. He touched it, and it opened like a mouth, revealing a narrow tunnel. He hesitated only a second before slipping inside. The tunnel closed behind him, sealing him in darkness. The walls in here were warm, almost alive. His hands brushed soft ridges like ribs as he crawled forward. The whisper ahead grew stronger. "Jake. Hurry." He crawled faster, his knees scraping the floor. The tunnel sloping down like a throat. Finally, he reached a small opening and pushed himself through. Falling into a hidden chamber, it was round and low, lit only by soft green lights dripping from the ceiling like liquid. The floor was covered with thin threads of glowing dust. At the center of the chamber stood a chair made of bone-like material. Wires hanging from it like spider webs, and on the far wall, a screen flickered to life. Zarni's face appeared, pale and weak, her eyes full of fear. "Jake," she whispered. "You must listen." He rushed forward. Kneeling in front of the screen, "Zarni. Where are you? What's happening?" "She has you now," Zarni said weakly. "Mother wants to change you. She wants to make you. One of us. Jake shook his head. What do you mean? Where are you? I'm going to get you out. Zarni coughed, static filling the screen for a moment. Then her voice came back. The house is alive. She built it. It listens to her. Don't trust anything. Don't drink, don't eat. Find the basement. Find me. The screen flickered and went black. Jake sat back, his hands trembling. He could still hear her voice in his head. Faint like an echo, he stood and looked around the chamber, his eyes catching on strange markings on the walls, symbols glowing faint blue. They looked almost human, but twisted. Then he heard a new sound. Heavy footsteps above him, slow and steady. Veltra. Her voice slid down the walls like oil. Little human. You wander where you should not. Jake's heart slammed in his chest. He backed toward the tunnel, but it had sealed shut. The green lights above him turned red. The walls pulsed faster, a low growl rising from the floor. He grabbed a loose wire from the chair and pulled hard. Sparks flew. The screen flickered. For a second, he saw another imager row of cryotubes filled with humans. Their faces pale and still. One of the tubes was broken. Empty, a name scratched on it. Zarni. Jake's stomach twisted. She was here. She had been taken. The growl from the floor became louder. The dust on the ground lifting like smoke. Something was coming. He ran to the far side of the chamber, where a small vent glowed faintly. He kicked it hard, again and again, until the cover bent and fell inward. He crawled through just as the chamber behind him filled with a blinding red light. The vent led to a vertical shaft. Cold air rushing upward, he slid down carefully, his hands burning against the ridges. He landed hard in another hallway, this one darker, lined with thick cables that pulsed like veins. The smell of salt and metal was stronger here. He moved quickly, keeping low, his ears straining for any sound. Ahead, he heard dripping water and something else, a low moan. Soft but human, he followed it, turning a corner into a long room filled with rows of tanks. Each glowing faint blue, shapes floated inside. Not all human, some had long limbs, some had gills, some had both. Jake stepped closer to one of the tanks, pressing his hand to the glass. Inside, a man floated with tubes in his arms. His eyes closed, but his chest moving slowly. Alive, Jake backed away, his stomach turning. Veltra had been collecting humans, experimenting. Then the moan came again. From the far corner, he ran toward it. Tripping over wires, the floor soft under his feet. There, half hidden behind a machine, was a small communicator. Blinking faint green, he grabbed it, pressed it to his ear. Jake. Zarni's voice, faint and broken. Basement, hurry. He looked up, his jaw tight. He was close. He could feel it. But before he could move, a hiss filled the room. The tanks began to glow brighter, lids sliding open, pale hands pressing against the glass from the inside. Veltra's voice echoed through the room, deep and smooth. You're already part of the house now, Jake. Can you feel it? He spun around, but no one was there. Only her voice and the sound of glass cracking. He gripped the communicator tighter, his eyes scanning for another exit. He whispered to himself, "Hold on, Zarni. I'm coming." The tanks shuddered, the lights dimmed, and one of the shapes inside opened its eyes. Asterisk Jake stood frozen in the cold blue light. All around him, the glass tanks hissed and trembled. Lids sliding back with a slow screech, pale hands pressed against the inside. Some with long claws, some with extra fingers. Some with skin-like scales. The smell of salt and metal filled his nose until he wanted to choke. The floor under his boots pulsed like a heartbeat. The cables above him swaying slowly as if in a breeze. He took one step back, then another, his eyes darting from tank to tank. These were not just aliens, these were mixed. Human and alien together. One face floated closer to the glass. A young man with pale skin and black eyes, tubes running from his mouth. His hand pressed to the glass where Jake stood. As if begging, Jake whispered under his breath, "What is this place?" A voice answered, smooth and cold, "Veltra," though she was nowhere to be seen. "My garden," she said softly, echoing from every wall. "My work." Jake spun around, searching the shadows. "Where is Zarni? Where is she?" "She is here," Veltra's voice said. "She is everywhere." The tanks hissed louder. Mist spilling out onto the floor like low clouds. Machines on the walls blinked with soft green lights. Symbols running across them like living text. Jake moved to one of the control panels, his fingers hovering over the buttons. Maybe he could open a door, shut off power, something. On the panel, a small screen flickered to life, a recording. Veltra's voice again, but older, tired. The daughter was too weak, it said, but this one is perfect. Jake's stomach turned. He slammed his fist against the panel. The screen cracked, but kept playing, showing images of Zarni as a child, then as an adult. Tubes in her arms, her eyes closed. He staggered back, his hands shaking. She had experimented on her own daughter. He heard a faint beep from his communicator. He grabbed it quickly. Zarni's voice, soft and broken. "Jake." "Basement? Hurry." "I'm trying," he whispered fiercely. "I'm coming for you." The tanks around him began to glow red. The figures inside shifting, some opening their eyes. Some pressing their mouths to the glass as if whispering. Veltra's voice filled the room again. Softer now, almost tender. "You are already changing. Little human," she said, "I can feel it in your blood. Don't you feel stronger? Don't you feel the house inside you?" Jake clenched his teeth, his hands balling into fists. "I'm nothing like you," he growled under his breath. He spotted a narrow door at the far end of the room. Half hidden behind pipes, a faint blue light leaking from under it. He ran toward it, slipping on the mist-covered floor. Behind him, the sound of cracking glass grew louder. A pale arm pushing out of a tank, then another. He reached the door. His hands fumbling over the smooth panel, it wouldn't open. He slammed his palm against it again and again. Finally, the panel blinked green and the door hissed open. Cold air rushed out, sharp and dry. He stepped inside and the door sealed behind him with a hiss. This room was darker, smaller. But the smell was worse, sharp and chemical. Rows of metal tables lined the walls, each holding strange instruments. Knives that glowed faintly, tubes filled with moving liquid. And in the center of the room, a single large tank filled with thick blue fluid. Inside floated a shape, small and curled. Wires attached to its limbs. Jake stepped closer, his breath catching in his throat. It was Zarni. Her eyes were closed. Her skin pale and glowing faintly under the liquid. Her hair floating like black smoke. Tubes ran into her arms. Her chest moving slowly. "Zarni." He whispered, pressing his hand to the glass. "I'm here." Her eyes fluttered open weakly. She looked at him, but didn't speak. Bubbles rising from her mouth. Behind him, Veltra's voice filled the room again. Low and sharp now. "Do you see how beautiful she is? Do you see what she can become? And you? You will be more." Jake turned, but the room was empty. Only her voice. He slammed his fist against the tank. "I'm taking her out." He shouted. The lights dimmed, machines around him coming to life. Needles sliding out, wires moving like snakes. Veltra's voice grew louder. "You were never here, Jake. No one will know. You will be my best work." He grabbed one of the glowing knives from a table and raised it. Slashing at the wires coming toward him, sparks flying. He stabbed the panel on the side of Zarni's tank. Alarms blaring, the blue liquid inside starting to drain. "Hold on, Zarni," he said. "Hold on." The door behind him hissed and began to open slowly. Light pouring in, but it was not a door to freedom. It was another chamber filled with shadows. From the darkness, a tall figure stepped out. Veltra, her eyes glowing deep purple, her long fingers curling like claws. "You can't take her," she said calmly. "She belongs to me. And so do you." Jake gripped the knife tighter. Standing between Veltra and the tank, his heart hammering, he whispered, "Not if I can help it," the machine screamed. The room shook, and Veltra's eyes burned brighter. Jake stood in front of Zarni's tank, his body tense, the glowing knife shaking in his hand. Veltra stepped closer, her eyes glowing like two purple suns. Her long arms spread as if to embrace him, her voice smooth like warm poison. "You're afraid," she said. "That's good. Fear means your body is still weak, but soon it will change." Jake's eyes flicked to the half-open tank behind him. Blue liquid spilling across the floor like thick fog. Zarni floated weakly, barely conscious. Wires still stuck in her arms and neck. "I'm not afraid of you," Jake said. Though his voice cracked, "I'm getting her out of here." "And I'm leaving," Veltra laughed. A low sound like metal grinding slowly. "Leave." She whispered, "You are inside the house. The house is inside you. There is no leaving, without warning." She lunged forward, faster than Jake expected. He swung the glowing knife just in time. Slicing across her arm, Veltra hissed and backed away. Black smoke rising from her wound. Her smile never fading. "Good," she said softly. "You are learning." Jake turned quickly to the tank, slashing the last wires with shaking hands. Zarni's body slipped forward into his arms. She was light, too light, her skin cold and soft like silk. He held her close, whispering, "Stay with me." "Please!" Machines screamed around them. Red lights flashing, the floor began to move. Shifting and rising like waves, the walls pulsed violently. Jake ran, holding Zarni tightly, his boots slipping on the wet floor. Wires tried to grab his legs, but he kicked them away. Veltra's voice followed him, louder now, everywhere at once. "You can't take her, Jake. She's mine. She's perfect." He pushed through the broken door. Sprinting back through the hallway, alarms blaring in strange tones. The tanks in the lab glowing bright as the creatures inside started waking. Some of them turned their heads to watch him. Their eyes blank, their mouths moving in silence. He reached the chamber with the long pipes, the one with the mist and machines, and paused for a breath. Zarni stirred in his arms. Her voice faint, "Basement. Destroy everything." Jake nodded. "I will, I promise." He spotted a staircase at the end of the room. Leading down into darkness, without thinking, he ran toward it. The floor rising behind him like a wave, trying to trap him. He jumped down the stairs just as the upper hallway closed shut like a giant mouth. The stairs spiraled deep underground. The air growing colder with each step, the light fading into black. Only the knife in his hand glowing dim blue now. At the bottom, he found a heavy door. Strange symbols carved across its surface, a small hand-shaped panel next to it. Jake placed his hand on the panel, hoping, praying. The door groaned and opened slowly, revealing a massive underground room. Machines lined the walls, and at the center stood a large core glowing red like a heart. Tubes ran from it into every wall, every ceiling, every floor. Zarni opened her eyes weakly and whispered, "Destroy it. Shut her down." Jake laid her gently on the floor and looked around. He spotted a panel with pulsing lights, rows of switches and buttons blinking fast. Warning signals and alien text flashing across the screen. He ran to it, slamming buttons, pulling levers. Machines screamed. The red core flickered. Walls cracked above him. Veltra's voice returned, full of rage now. "You dare break my gift." This house was your future, your new life. I don't want your life, Jake shouted, pulling a glowing cylinder from the machine. Sparks flew. The core blinked wildly. Suddenly, the whole room began to shake. Cracks forming across the floor, red lights spilling through them. He ran back to Zarni, lifting her again. "We have to go," he said. The ceiling split open above them, and a giant root-like structure pushed down, glowing purple, Veltra's final form. Part of the house itself, her voice deep and broken. "You will become one of us. You belong to me," she growled. Jake pulled a final switch from the panel and stabbed it into the glowing root. Electricity exploded in every direction. Veltra screamed, a sound so loud it shook his bones. The red core burst in a blinding flash. The house groaned, every wall rippling like water. Jake held Zarni close and ran, smoke and light chasing him. Stairs cracking under his feet as he climbed, machines exploding behind him. He reached the surface, just as the door ahead opened by itself. Light from the sky pouring in, he ran out into the open. The alien sun hitting his face, and behind him the house screamed one last time. Then collapsed inward like a dying star. Jake collapsed in the grass outside, holding Zarni close. Her eyes half open, her hand weak in his. "We made it," he whispered. "We're free," but deep in the distance, a soft voice echoed through the wind. "You can never destroy what is already part of you." Jake looked down at his arm. A faint glow under his skin, blue lines moving slowly. Quietly, he closed his eyes, breathing hard. The fight wasn't over yet. The twin suns of Veltra's world rose slowly in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the broken land. Jake sat in the tall red grass, cradling Zarni in his arms. Her skin pale, her breath soft and slow. The ruined house behind them had collapsed into itself like a dying creature. Its walls turned to ash. The air smelled of smoke and strange dust. Jake looked at his hands. They were shaking. But it wasn't from fear. It was from the change. Thin blue lines moved just under his skin, glowing softly. Like circuits pulsing through his blood, Zarni stirred weakly. Her voice dry and low. "You pulled me out. You saved me." Jake nodded slowly, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "I couldn't leave you," he said, "but I think something's wrong with me." She opened her eyes fully now, looking into his face. Her own eyes filled with pain and regret. "I didn't tell you everything," she whispered, "about my mother." "And about you." Jake leaned in closer, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell me now, please." Zarni looked up at the sky, the twin suns climbing higher. "My mother wasn't just a scientist. She was the last bioengineer of our kind. She created the living houses, the hybrid machines, and the first human-alien fusions." Jake's breath caught in his chest. "You mean those people in the tanks? She made them?" "Yes," Zarni said, her voice full of sorrow. "She experimented for years. She believed mixing our species was the only way to survive. But her work was cruel and illegal." Jake looked down at his glowing arm. The patterns under his skin moving slowly like rivers of light. "She injected me, didn't she?" Zarni nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "While you were in the house, the walls touched you. The machines learned your blood. They began changing you." Jake stood up slowly. His fists clenched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to," she said, struggling to sit up, "but I ran away from her too. She found me before I could warn you. She always finds people before I do." He turned and walked a few steps away, staring at the horizon. "So what am I now? Half human, half house?" Zarni stood beside him, leaning on his shoulder. "You're still you. But you're not unchanged." He looked at her face, tired and beautiful, scarred by pain and truth. "What happens now?" Zarni took a shaky breath. "There's a backup lab under the cliffs. miles from here. I helped build it before I escaped. It has the antidote. And answers. Jake looked at his arm again, then at her. Is there enough for both of us? She paused, her silence saying everything. I see, Jake said quietly. Then let's not waste time. They walked together through the broken fields. Zarni leaning on him as they crossed patches of glowing soil and dead machines half buried in the ground. The world felt quiet now, too quiet, as if it were watching them from beneath the dirt. At nightfall, they reached a hidden cliff. The rocks parting like old stone doors, revealing a narrow path that led down into darkness. Zarni touched a panel hidden in the rock. It blinked blue, then green. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the lab was clean and quiet, untouched by the chaos above. Jake helped her lie down on a soft table, then turned toward the central console. Screens lighting up as he stepped forward. One screen showed his own body. The blue line spreading deeper through his chest, his heart pulsing with alien rhythm. Another screen showed a vial marked prototype serum, full reset only one. Zarni sat up slowly, her voice trembling. You can take it. It will erase the changes. You'll be human again. Jake stared at the vial. Then at the screen, showing Zarni's vital signs, Zons, stable. Fading slowly, he reached out, then paused. You're dying too, she smiled sadly. But I was made for this world, Jake. I can survive longer. You need to go home. He shook his head. Not without you. She stood beside him now, her hand resting over his. I knew you'd say that. Then the console beeped, another screen lighting up, showing partial transfer possible. Cher Sermjag looked at her. Surprised? We can split it. Maybe, she said softly, but it's risky. We might not be fully human. Or fully alien. He looked into her eyes and slowly nodded. Then let's become something new. They held hands as he pressed the button. The serum split into two. Doses, one glowing blue, the other soft gold. They injected each other at the same time, light rushing through their bodies like fire. Jake screamed. Zarni fell to her knees. The lab lights flickered. The machines howled. Then silence. They opened their eyes slowly. The blue lines on Jake's arm faded but didn't disappear. Zarni's skin glowed faint gold, her breath strong. They looked at each other, not fully human, not fully alien, but something in between. Alive and together. The sky above the alien world turned dark. Heavy clouds rolling across the twin suns, lightning crackled in the distance. Jake stood outside the hidden lab with Zarni at his side. Both of them changed, not fully human, not fully alien, but stronger. Their bodies glowing faintly under the skin. The wind carried the sound of something coming ships. Dozens of silver dots moved fast across the clouds, slicing the sky in sharp patterns, their engines humming like thunder. Jake squinted and saw the human flags on their wings, red and blue streaks across steel. They found us, he whispered. Zarni nodded, her voice steady. They followed the signal we sent. But they won't know what happened here. They won't know what you've become. He looked at his hands, the faint blue lines still there, pulsing gently like slow fire. Do you think they'll help us soar or kill us? Before she could answer, the ships began landing all around them, sending out shockwaves as their engines roared. Soldiers in black armor stepped out. Guns raised, visors locked onto Jake and Zarni. A tall man walked through the soldiers. No helmet, sharp eyes, his voice like gravel. Name, Jake Carter, he said. Standing tall, Earth colony worker. Off duty, the man glanced at Zarni. Alien partner. Jake nodded. Zarni Veltra. Daughter of the one who built the hybrid house that made the man freeze. Whispers moved through the soldiers like wind. Where's the mother? The commander asked coldly. Jake pointed toward the ruins. Gone, destroyed, the lab, the experiments. Everything. The man raised one eyebrow. By you? Jake said nothing, but his eyes said everything. The commander looked at Zarni, then back at Jake. You're not fully human anymore, are you? Jake didn't blink. No, but I'm still me. Silence followed, heavy and sharp. Then one of the soldiers shouted, We've got movement under the ruins. Something's alive. Everyone turned, weapons raised. The earth began to shake again. Cracks forming in the dirt from beneath the ruined house. A scream rose deep, inhuman, filled with rage. Veltra. She wasn't dead, not completely. The ground exploded upward as a massive shape burst from below. A twisted version of Veltra, half flesh, half machine. Her body a mess of wires and bone. Her eyes burning purple. I gave you a new world. She roared, her voice echoing like thunder, and you choose to destroy it? Soldiers opened fire, lasers slicing through the air. Explosions rocking the ground, Veltra screamed and sent out a wave of energy, pushing tanks and men aside like paper. Jake grabbed Zarni's hand. Stay with me, he said. And they ran straight into the storm. Together, they moved fast, their hybrid bodies reacting with speed and strength. Dodging blasts, leaping across broken ground. Jake climbed a nearby wrecked machine, grabbed a railgun from a fallen soldier, and aimed at Veltra's exposed core. Zarni, now. He shouted. She raised both hands, sending a blast of golden energy toward the beast's side, distracting her. Jake fired, the railgun shaking in his arms, the shot hitting dead center. Veltra roared in pain, stumbling back. Her core cracked and flickering, but she wasn't finished. Not yet. She turned toward Jake, her voice full of venom. You could have ruled with me. Been more than human. Jake stared at her, rage in his eyes. Being human is enough. He ran straight toward her, pulling the last serum vial from his jacket, the backup dose Zarni had hidden. He jumped high, dodging her claws, and stabbed the serum straight into her core. The effect was instant. Her body froze, wires snapping, energy spilling from her like broken stars. Veltra looked at him one last time, her voice now small and broken. I made you. No, Jake whispered. I made myself. Veltra collapsed in a flash of white light. The ground shook, then silence. Soldiers lowered their weapons, eyes wide, mouths open. The commander stepped forward. Slowly, she's gone. Jake nodded, breathing hard, Zarni beside him, holding his arm. The commander looked at them both, then gave a short nod. We'll take you in for testing, but not as prisoners. Zarni blinked. Then what? As heroes, the man said. You stopped the last hybrid threat. Jake looked up at the sky, the clouds now clearing. The twin suns shining again, he whispered. Let's go home, Zarni smiled. Together, as the ships lifted into the air, carrying them off the strange world, the galaxy would soon hear the story. Not just of aliens, or hybrids, or monsters, but of a human who refused to lose himself, even when the whole universe tried to rewrite him, and of the alien girl who stood beside him until the very end.